esas almak suretiyle yayınlanıyor. Esas almak suretiyle her birinize söz vermiş olacağım. Burada ilk sunum başlığı olarak benim görmüş olduğum sunum başlığı programda yer alan sunum başlığına baktığımızda General Process of E-Government Application and Recent Update in Turkey galiba. Ümit Bektaş ve Burak Koçak Recep Tayyip Üniversitesi'nden arkadaşlarımız beraberce çalışmışlar. Dolayısıyla ilk sunumu Burak burada. Galiba Burak sen sunacaksın.
Evet hocam, buradayım.
Hazırlığını yapabildin mi?
Evet hocam, kamerayı açacağım, sonra da ekranımı paylaşacağım. Şu an kameranın çalışacağını düşünüyorum. Merhabalar tekrardan.
Merhabalar.
O zaman başlayayım mı hocam ekran paylaşımıyla?
Evet, tabii başlayabiliriz. Yani her biriniz için tanımlanmış olan süre bir 15 dakika içinde sunum yapmanız bekleniyor. Dolayısıyla o zaman periyodumuz bir 15'er dakikalık ancak izin veriyor. Yani 1 saat 15 dakika yapıyor. 1 saat 15 dakikanın 15 dakikalık kısmını ise soru cevap için belki sorular varsa online arkadaşlar bize iletecekler. Oradan soru cevap kısmı üzerinden size sorular iletilecek. Onları cevaplayacağız. Dolayısıyla her birinize 15'er dakika olacak şekilde lütfen sunumlarınızı alalım. Evet, söz senin Burak'cığım.
Teşekkür ederim hocam. Ben Burak Koçak, Recep Tayyip Erdoğan Üniversitesi'nde doktor öğretim üyesi olarak görev yapmaktayım. Siyaset bilimi ve kamu yönetimi bölümünde. Doktor araştırma görevlisi arkadaşlarımızdan Mücahit Bektaş ile biz betimsel bir çalışma yapmıştık. Bunda da e-devlet uygulamalarını ve Türkiye'nin durumunu incelemiştik.
Sen Türkçe mi sunacaksın Burak?
Yok, İngilizce geçeceğim hocam. Şu tanıtım
tamam.
kendi kısmını yapmak istedim.
Tamam.
Kendisiyle birlikte Mücahit Bektaş arkadaşımızla birlikte e-devlet uygulamalarının genel süreci ve Türkiye'deki durumunu analiz etmek istedik. Bizim başlığımız da General Process of E-Government Application and Recent Updates in Turkey. Şu an sanırım ekran paylaşımında herhalde bir sıkıntı yok.
Evet, sorun yok, görüyoruz.
Tamam, teşekkür ederim. Bir saniye, orada yok ama ben de şu an tıkandı gibi görüyorum. Çok özür dilerim. Tamam, ilerliyormuş, tamam. İlerletemedim biraz önce. Yine şuradan göremiyorum. Şunu. As I told you, the title of our work is General Process of E-Government Applications and Recent Updates in Turkey. So the aim of our study is to determine the level of about Turkey e-government and e-government developments in Turkey by comparing it with developments in the world. So when we consider the level of technology reached in the 21st century, the human factor has begun to disable in the provision of public services in many areas. Time and space constraints, which are two other obstacles in the delivery of public service, have been eliminated thanks to the integration of information and technology. So the e-government that emerged as a result of this logic also constitutes the essence of this study. Just to define e-government, e-government means the relationship of public institutions with each other, with citizens, with non-government organizations, and with the private sector, and transferring the state in this direction. So we can also describe e-governments, its efforts to move away from the traditional bureaucratic understanding. We can say it, we can define e-government as a shortly like that. So just I want to give some information about historical background. First applications about e-governments go back to 1960s, but as all we know that in this period, the technical and technological infrastructure was used in only in military defense systems. So just the governments were using that e-government. I mean, it's not actually e-government, but technological way in just in the military defense system. But in 1980s and 1990s, the internet started to be used among also other publications, public institutions, and the private sector and individuals. And after 1990s, it became widespread to also with the others, not only in military defense system. In this period, internet was used by government, by public institutions just only for sending emails. But in private sector, it's not the same as a public sector. In private sector, they were using the internet for the provision of goods and services. For example, in Turkey, Migros started to offer online shopping opportunities to its customers in 1997. And with the early 2000s, when states started to use e-governments at the level of provide services, but except for international emails and websites. And also we know that Turkey met with internet through the metro, the university, metro-based line established between Ankara and Washington in 1993 with the financial support of the World Bank. And after that, it soon became widespread enough to allow the implementation of some of the above mentioned policies that I will give you some information about the policies now. In the few years after Turkey's introduction to the internet, two fundamental developments have taken place that will lay to foundations of e-government. The first of this development is internet pages used by institutions, especially municipalities, mostly to provide information about the services and promote them. Another fundamental development is the establishment of public networks for inter-institutional and internal communications and correspondence. So we can understand that first e-government applications was used in the municipal level, not in the whole country. It was just in the municipal way. Also, the European Union membership process has also contributed to the development of e-government in Turkey, because the European Union asks Turkey for about digital transformation, and in this digital transformation policy to enable the union's goal of becoming the world's leading economy with the knowledge-based economy field model. Also, this was embodied in Turkey in 2003 with the scope of emergency action plan and under the name of Turkey's e-transformation project. We can see first e-government process in Turkey, some like applications, not only applications, some internet websites. We can see from here, for example, Mermis about the identity ID service, as all we know, or for UYAP, it's about the judge service, or police information system, Polnet. Also, is all we know that they are some of the first applications, e-government applications about the Turkey, and we were trying to access the other one. Integrated e-government applications, which were implemented in many countries other than Turkey before 2008, are based on the principle of associating the information technologies used by public institutions. And for example, when we look at the working principle of the e-government gateway, the most important change is the removal of the technical infrastructure from being institution-centered and placing it on a user service centered base. So they were, about the e-government, they were trying to make using of that from the institution centered to user service centered. They were trying to make human to use this internet. As I told you that one of these programs, Mernis, was trying about the Turkey's e-government applications. Also, the big issue, the big step for Turkey, the Turkish Republic Presidential Digital Transformation Office was established to coordinate e-government process of Turkey. So let me tell you something about the conclusion. When we analyze Turkey's position about e-governments and when we compare it with the world, we can see that Turkey did not lag behind the world. Actually, the use of information-based technology in public services provision has similar histories with the developed countries. So Turkey, the level of Turkey is not back of the other countries. Also, as I told, Science and Technology High Council was established in 1983, which is so early date. Okay, it was abolished in 2018, but 1983 is the really early time, really the early date about that. As I mentioned before, in Turkey, e-government applications first used in military field. After that, it's also used in the other public services. Now the thousands of services can be provided by government with e-government. E-government can secure transparency, citizen orientation, efficiency, equality, etc. So e-government can be used for many good things. Again, as I mentioned before, the level of Turkey, we can say that the development is going with the parallel with many leading countries in the world. Of course, some level of them, they are not same, but mostly they look same. Turkey is not in the behind of them. One more point, while the number of users using e-government with the password is ahead of other countries in the world, but the number of users using electronic signatures has lagged behind the world. As all we know that in Turkey, most of the citizens use e-government by password, but we don't use it so common with the electronic password. So this is a negative point of Turkey about the e-government, our last sentence. So it was my short, brief presentation. You can ask me if you have any question. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Burak. Let me get the question at the end of presentations. Yani zaman kaybetmemek için
nasıl isterseniz hocam, ben klasiktir, sorun varsa soru alabilirim şeklinde. Tamam. Çok teşekkür ederim.
Soruları sonradan alacağız.
Nasıl isterseniz.
Şimdi ikinci, yani burada biraz zihnini hazırlarsan belki şöyle sorular gelebilir. Yani sen bu bildiride bir parça dünya ile Türkiye'yi karşılaştıracak bir şey. Yani spesifik olarak bir tane alanı seçmedin. Genel olarak bütün Türkiye'deki e-government application'ları karşılaştırmış oldun. Belki yani daha böyle somut parametreler var mı mukayese edeceğin data anlamındaki birkaç tane gösterge?
Var hocam. Birkaç rakamsal
sen biraz düşün. Oturumun sonundaki gelen kısımlar konusunda konuşuruz.
Tamam hocam,
ikinci oturuma, şimdi ikinci sunuma geçecek olursak, Globalization is fair or not, Beyza Nurbilen sunacak. Dolayısıyla vakit kaybetmeden Beyza Nur Bilen'in sunumunu almaya başlayalım.
Okay. Can everyone see my presentation? Okay.
We see but Beyza şeyini kapat.
Okay.
Şimdi belki daha şey o. F5 yapar mısın yavrucuğum?
1 minute.
Yani
I
belki...
think I need to play here. Yeah.
Şimdi de tamam,
It's okay.
okay. Go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Beyza Nur Bilen. I am working at Niederömer University at the Faculty of Economy and the Administrative Science, Department of Commercial Law. I'm a research assistant. Today, I'm going to talk about globalization, and globalization is fair or not, and the income distribution and the poverty. So, if we start with the globalization has resulted.
Just pass the globalization part. Go ahead. What's your main idea?
My screen fully because of the.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to need to do this because the görüntüler engelliyor.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to skip the globalization and the explanation. And globalization and the economic perspective. Economic globalization is developing along the two axes. The first one is the globalization of the production, and the other one is the globalization of the finance. The production refers to the enterprises operating in the country, shifting the low-cost labor locations, countries in order to lower the production cost. The finance refers to the capital spreading to other countries where the least risk and the most profits are unlimited. There is a case study of Apple. And today, all around the world, most countries move their production center to the cheaper countries rather than their home-based countries. If you look at the example of Apple, Forbes announced that Apple is one of the most valuable brands in the world. And Apple's financial size is beyond our imaginations. Also, Apple's market capitalization of Apple is higher than the size of 7th largest economy by the GDP in the world. In the data of 2012, the France. The Apple's iPhones and iPads parts are produced by US companies other than Apple in South Korea, in Japan, Thailand, and the parts are assembled in the China. So this production chain we call a global value chain, GVC. So different countries join this chain in the different stages and they contribute. And the reason why Apple assembles its iPhones and iPads parts in China is if Apple and iPhone parts were combined in the USA, the additional cost would reach around $65 American, and he would have to pay 35% of his profit to taxes. But the amount of taxes he pays in China is only 2% of his profit. Also, Chinese workers only get 1.8% of the iPhone selling price, but the non-Chinese workers of Apple get 3.5% of this price. And the profit of other countries other than Apple is making in this production chain 2.5%, and Apple's profit is 58.5%. And we are now global income distribution. So economists have developed a variety of ways of measuring the distribution of income in a country among the various segments of the population. The Gini coefficient approach is on the other hand, is one of the most frequently used methods for determining the income distribution. The Gini coefficient has a value between 0 and 1, and when the Gini coefficient approaches 0, it indicates that the country's income distribution is fair. But when it approaches the 1, it indicates that income distribution is unfair. This chart shows the worldwide Gini coefficient. As we see that the worldwide Gini coefficient has risen dramatically as a result of the rapid economic progress achieved by the industrialization countries, and the income gap between the other economies that were unable to participate in this develop is begun to raise. As a result, the worldwide Gini index dramatically climbed, as we can see that. However, in the 20th century, the worldwide Gini coefficient began to fluctuate around 0.70. The world Gini coefficient, on the other hand, has declined considerably since the 2020. The reason the 20th century is as a result of the government progressive tax policies, social welfare measures or income redistribution, or the catching up the other economies with the industrialization, it's began to fluctuate around 0.7. But after the 2000, the rise in the middle income levels in Asia's poorest country, as we say that Apple moved the production centers to cheapest countries, for example, China or Korea, as we say that. So Asia's poorest country, as a result of this globalization, has lifted millions of people out of poverty, so causing the global Gini coefficient 2 degrees after 2000, indicating a better global income distribution. This table shows regional per capita GNP to per capita GNP of the core North countries. We say the North core countries, we say North America, Western Europe, or Southern Europe. We see that between 1980s and 1994, these countries, if we say Sub-Sahara, African, and Latin America, these countries were getting a low share of GNP. If you take the North as 100%, they're only just getting 5% or 4% or 2% of this share. And after the globalization, this share is begun to get lower, 4% to 2% or 18%. I'm speaking for the Latin America, 18% to 12%. So globalization has caused poorer regions to go worsen to compare to the North. If you look at the East Asia, as we say that after the globalization, the rising middle class, the big companies moving their production center there and lifting millions of people out of poverty, the gap between the East Asia and the North is still huge. The East Asia, as you can see, that in 1990 only gets 13% of this 13% of even this catch up, even the success story after the East Asia. Okay, I am moving to this is the in this chart we see that how unfair the income distribution of the world. The world's poorest 50, the bottom 50%, we say the poorest half, meaning 4 billion of people of the world, receives between only 5 to 8%, as you can see, the 5 to 8%, and the richest 1% of the world receives between 18%, as you can see, 20%. So this shows that the distribution of income and in the world is extraordinarily disoriented. So we are going to question that what is the role of the globalization has to do on this. As seen in this graph, the richest 10% of the population has the biggest share, as you can see, as a red richest 10%. While the poorest 50%, as you can see, the blue bottom 10% of the populations obtains the smallest percentage of income. If you look at the Sub-Saharan or Latin America regions, so the dramatic extent of global income disparity is actually a far more significant structure in the world's poorest region, as you see, Sub-Saharan and Latin America. So income distribution is much more worse condition in the poor economies. In this table, on the other hand, as a result of the globalization process, the share of wages in international income in these countries, as you can see, England, USA, France, these countries wages changes in national income. There were 70% to 80% before the 1980, but by the time 2010. This share of countries in income degrees continues, as you can see that, and fell down to the range around 60% and 70%. So we can notice that due to the globalization, laborers who make the substantial part of the society have witnessed a significant decrease in their share of the global wealth. The share of the labor in the national income has decreased, as you can see that. Mm-hmm. The development of the worldwide income distribution in 1988 to 2008, we will examine this chart focusing on the ABC points on this chart. The middle class of the nations, such as we say China, India, Vietnam, or Thailand, which have the largest population density in the Far Asia, which is indicated in the point A in this graph, increase their income level from global income by 3 or 2.2 times between the times 1988 to 2008. So we are going to refer them as a rising middle class, since they have a bigger proportion in the global welfare than other countries. So despite this, the income of the middle class households in developed countries, such as West Europe or North America, Oceania, as we say, VENOA, and Japan, has remained relatively stable through the time. The fact that developed countries' welfare levels remain unchanged during the 20 years period. So we are going to refer them as a losing class. And this graph, we are going to refer them as a point B. If you look at the point C, who make up the richest 1% of the population, developed central countries have witnessed their income several times over global income period. It is represented in the point C. So this segment has been able to enhance their income numerous times due to the strong returns of the capital in this procedure. So wealthy in this segment, we say that also plocrats, known as also plocrats, have been able to increase their benefits from global welfare, but not only through their income, but also through their position influencing and or favoring them in politics or market opportunities or legal process. Okay, as we say, gainers in the emerging middle class, point A, emerging Asian countries, China and India, and the super rich, we said words 1%, point C, global progressive, we said the C point, and the losers, as we said, the point B, VENOA, did not change their income in 20 years period. One of the questions focused on the globalization has been the question of what is the most important factor that determines someone's lifetime level of income for an individual. For many years, social scientists answered this question due to the new economic structure brought by the industrialization. It determines by which economic class a person from. Also, Marx says that economic class is which a person belongs, determines what is his lifetime income will be. However, but in the recent years, it has been shown that the answer to this question, what determines individual's lifetime income, is determined by which country's citizen rather than which economic class they belong to. So Milanovic refers to this as a citizenship rank, where you're a citizen is the most important element that affects what amount of average income you will have. For this reason, many of people start to immigrate from one country to another country nowadays to earn higher wages and obtain citizenship. So as a result, all developed countries oppose to this entry of immigrants from underdeveloped regions, nations. So it's been suggested that if the stretching or the flexing the immigration policies, this will reduce the global inequality. Global wealth. The global wealth means a person's wealth means that made up from all his fixed and mobile assets. Actually, how the world's wealth is distributed is more important than how the 1 year income is distributed. If you look at this chart, when the worldwide income 2020 compared to the wealth is approximately 5 times bigger than income. So as a result, this chart illustrates that global wealth and income distribution in 2021. As can be you can see that inequality in the global wealth distribution has much more structure than inequality in income distribution. In reality, although worldwide Gini coefficient remains around 0.60%, but the Gini coefficient of the wealth is around 0.90%. If you look at this chart, for all these countries, USA, UK, Germany, the distribution of wealth is much more unfair distribution of, if you compare to the labor. We see that while the Gini coefficient is 0.9 in the wealth distribution, but if you look at the labor income distribution, is around 0.5. So wealth distribution is much more unfair in this scenario. Okay, moving through. In this chart, we are seeing that in 2009, as you can see that 380 people, the rich people like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, own the same amount of wealth as the poorest half of the population, world's population. In when the time 2013, you can see that this number decreased to 83 people. And when the time 2018, this number decreased to 26 people. So you can see that the issue of fairness in the global wealth distribution is disrupted in a significant way. So this chart, if you look at this chart and seeing the other side of the coin, the poverty and how the poverty is evolving, as seen in this table, when the poverty threshold is set to 1.90 American dollars, the percentage of the population living in the below the poverty threshold is 42.7. So liberals who favor the globalization and see this rate, who argue the globalization and favor them, see this falling under 10% by the 2017, as you can see, is a proof of globalization success story. Indeed, from this perspective, the improvement in the emerging Asia middle class and the decrease in the worldwide Gini coefficient after 2000, if a limited extent, yes, this is an improvement in a global income distribution. But despite the fact, if we raise the poverty threshold to 3.20 American dollars, you can see that around 25% of the world's population is still poor. Even if you raise the poverty threshold to 5.5%, as you can see, that nearly half of the population, like 43% of the world, is still poor. So globalization can be argued to have significant role in the boost in the global welfare, but its impact on ensuring the global justice is just quite limited. So we continue to view the poverty as a major issue for our planet. And while globalization does help to lessen it, but it does not provide a complete answer to this poverty issue. It is well known that those who favor the globalization are the liberals and proponents of the free market. So liberals highlight that globalization success in decreasing the poverty around the world. In the anti-globalization social democrat point of review, in contrast to the liberal point of review, claims that globalization has a negative effect on the impact on global income and the wealth distribution. So as a result, production shifting to low-cost labor locations and naturally fall in the real wages, as we mentioned before. This point of view has resulted in weakening the labor union and the So in this chart, we see that tax income distribution, how the world most developed countries tax income distribution. While it's expected from the state to correct this injustice in income distribution, one way to do this with the tax policies. The tax system, but does not provide this because taxes are collected primarily from middle income category. As you can see, individual income tax 21%, or value-added tax or other indirect taxes 39% of it. So in reality, it's well known that as a result of globalization, corporation tax, as you can see, 11% of it has been slashed to astonishing levels in all countries. For this reason, tax system should be reformed and share of taxes of income and the wealth taxes should be increased in order to use it effective instrument to reduce the income distribution inequality. And Piketty also claims that wealthy people earnings will outpace their economy's growth rates, and this trend will lead to distortion in income and wealth distribution. So the Piketty solution is this. Global progressive wealth taxes. So globalization and finance. Opponents of the globalization take position that globalization is a primarily financial character, causing people with the financial holdings to benefit from high returns. So according to 2008 data, all foreign exchange transactions in the world one day is $6.6 trillion. So according to World Trade Organization, the total annual export reports made in one day approximately $25 trillion. So as you can see, the globalization is perfect working with the finance and the goods and services, but on the other hand, it is restricting the human movement. So it is necessary to allow the globalization, or it is necessary to allow not only the finance and the goods and services, also the globalization of the human labor, so also the human movement too. So, according to market supporters, globalization has enhanced the global welfare and the poverty rate has dropped over the time. But despite the fact that so-called rising the middle class Asia, particularly China and India, caused a decrease in the global Gini coefficient after 2000, the income level of the middle class in the country is defined whenever we said, their position has remained unchanged. It should be noted that, however, not all developing countries, such as China or India, have the same opportunity to boost their economies through globalization by driving the large amount of foreign direct capital. So all the opponents of the globalization, on the other hand, argue that globalization causes the world's super rich, particularly huge corporations and capital, to rapidly increase their income and wealth, and this significant factor disrupting the global income and the wealth distribution. Rather than we say seeing the globalization as a black and white, we believe that it is far more vital to see how globalization generates alternative policies, approaches, and conscious of the benefits and the challenges that globalization poses. And all the opportunities by the big data and the network economy point to the world in which people will lost their jobs to robotization in the future. In such transaction, individuals would want to move the wealthy nations to obtain share of the world's wealth. The barriers of globalization should be eliminated in a way that makes the benefits of the globalization available for all the humanity if we are achieve a more fair and livable position in the world. Thank you for your patience. Any questions?
Lisa, thank you very much. It was very nice, actually. Maybe we will get to some question for the presentation. Let me go ahead. This globalization and income fairness it was not good. Let me be happy with the relationship between internet and happiness subject. Esra, she's going to be give this presentation. Please go ahead, Esra.
Thank you, Hocam. Let me share my screen first.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, right?
It's okay.
Okay, the title of, let me introduce myself. This is Esra Karapınar Koca. I'm an assistant professor in Gümüşhane University. Today I will be presenting the relationship between internet use and happiness. Worldwide internet access has dramatically increased over the past decade. The rapid growth of internet usage has spawned research on both benefits and dangers of online activities. Despite widely perceived merits of the internet, specialists are aware of negative impacts and its overuse or misuse and internet-related physical and psychological problems. There are several arguments in favor of a positive influence of the internet. First, the internet gives access to a wide range of applications and services that provide direct and indirect benefits. It's obvious that for online entertainment services like music, video, games, etc., that are a source of enjoyment. But thanks to the internet, people can also save time and money. They can search and process information more efficiently, get better deals, or find products and services that better match their needs. For all these reasons, internet enables individuals to attain a higher level of utility and increase their well-being. Goldsby and Klenov estimated the yearly value of per consumed derived from internet access to $3,000. Another argument that pleads in favor of a positive impact of internet use, positive effect of internet use is, a positive effect of internet use on life satisfaction, that is that many internet applications like social networking, emailing, blogging, etc. have the features of a relational good. So a good that is enjoyed only when it is shared with friends, family members, or other people. Since the consumption of relational goods is source of happiness, internet use can improve well-being by increasing the time dedicated to relational activities. In the same vein, the internet is a means of building and maintaining social relations or social capital. Recent surveys have shown that in developed countries, most people regularly use internet. For young people, the internet is the primary media choice and past the TV in the amount of time spent a week. Given the increasingly prominent role the internet plays in people's daily life, understanding its influence on individual well-being is crucial. A reason to presume a positive relation between internet use and happiness is that nowadays having access to internet is perceived as a social norm in developed countries. Non-internet users could feel ostracized or socially excluded, even if they do not feel the desire to adopt the internet. Now I want to present the data I use in this investigation. I will use European Social Survey Wave 10 in 2020 to explain how internet usage influenced individuals' happiness. This survey, maybe you know, is mainly to monitor and interpret changing public attitudes and values for European countries and to show changing institutions across Europe. In this survey, in my sample, I have 10 European countries that are Bulgaria, Croatia, Czechia, Estonia, Finland, France, Hungary, Lithuania, Slovakia, and Slovenia. Attitudes, values, and beliefs of individuals within Europe are covered by this cross-sectional survey. Even though the survey was traditionally conducted through face-to-face interviews, countries could use alternative methods to like video interviews in this wave of survey as a result of COVID-19 outbreak. This data set consists of 18,006 individual observations from those 10 countries. As you can see, the distribution of sample across those 10 European countries. This is internet use as a percentage in the sample. As might be seen, most of the samples, so almost 63% of them, use internet every day. And those who never use internet is about 16% of the sample. Happiness is the dependent variable of this investigation, and it is given in an ordered structure. The survey question is, taking all things together, how happy would you say you are to measure the happiness? Corresponding answers to this question are given in a Likert scale, which is from 0, extremely unhappy, to 10, extremely happy. This categorical order dependent variable is dichotomized, and its answer categories are recoded from 6 to 11 as being happy, the remaining categories as 0 being unhappy. In doing this sort of simplification, even if it means loss of information, a good first answer, because of simple specification and easier interpretation, are aimed. The dependent variable can take up values of only 0 and 1. So this is a binary choice model. And in this investigation, because of the characteristic of the dependent variable, I prefer to apply probit model. Subjective individual happiness is denoted by H. X variable represents individual characteristics like education level, age, gender, marital status, migration status, along with subjective indicators like health status, political polarization, socialization, and religiosity. In this model specification, it is assumed that error term epsilon I is independent and normally distributed. And this is the findings of my research. Although coefficients that are obtained from probit model is not directly interpretable, they are still useful to see the statistical significance and sign of the variables. Therefore, in the first column, I have raw coefficients obtained from ordered probit model. In the second column, I also calculated marginal effects that provide information on a change in one of the regressors on the conditional average on the dependent variable presented there. The dependent variable of interest is internet use, which is given in 5 categories. According to the empirical findings, category 5 that presents those who use internet every day is found positive and statistically significant. More clearly, being in the category of those who use internet every day versus those who never use it increases probability of being happy. This means that those who expose internet more are more likely to be happy than those who never exposed. Education is found to be statistically significant and positively associated with subjective happiness of individuals. Namely, 1 more year of education increases the probability of being happy by 0.8 percentage points. There is no gender effect, while positive age effect was found. It's interesting that socialization variables are mostly found to be statistically significant and positive, considering those who never meet as a base category. Individuals meeting with friends, relatives, or colleagues every day or several times a week are more likely to be happy, which is the highest size effect. Health is another significant indicator of subjective happiness. Having a good health versus a very good health decreases the probability of being happy, and the negative effect gets larger when the subjective health is fair, bad, or very bad. Marital status with 6 categories is also generally found to be a significant indicator to explain happiness. Migration status and political polarization, left or not, are not found to be statistically significant. Finally, religiosity is found to be positively associated with happiness, that is statistically significant at 1% significance level. To conclude, in this research, I highlighted what factors influence individuals' subjective happiness, with a special emphasis on the internet use. To investigate this, data from 10 European countries are utilized. Considering the dichotomous dependent variable, probit model is applied to explore in which way and size happiness is affected by the internet use of individuals, along with a variety of independent variables. According to research presented, I suggest that internet use is a significant predictor of happiness. Higher exposure is found to be associated with a higher probability of being happy. Nevertheless, a few limitations of this study should be mentioned. First, the data I use give information on the frequency of internet use. Even if we know how often individuals use internet, it does not give any information on for which purpose those individuals use it, like work, social media, news, online chatting, etc. We don't know it. Therefore, a more detailed information would enrich the findings of this study. Secondly, in this cross-sectional study, the time period is 2020, so wave 10. Having a wider range of time would be more informative on how internet use influence individual happiness over time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Esra. It was interesting subject. Bir sonraki sunumumuz relationship between labor share and labor share of income and labor market institutions, panel data analysis for OECD countries. Yani bir tür tamamlayıcılık ilişkisi olacak mı bakalım globalization tartışmasına. Yani orada Esra Nur
Ben hocam.
evet Nur bize sunumu yapacak. Buyur Nur, devam et, yapalım.
Ekran paylaşıyorum hocam şu anda. Bir saniye. Tamam. Sizlerde görünüyor mu şu anda ekran?
Görünüyor. Sadece biraz
Tamam.
büyütme imkanın varsa daha iyi görünür. Tamam.
Şu an sunum şeklinde duruyor ama sizde
Gayet
de aynı
güzel.
şekilde.
Tamam. No problem.
Tamam, süper. My name is Nur Değerli, and I prepared this study with my thesis advisor, whose name is Tolga Aksoy, and also working in Yıldız Technical University. And the name of my study is the relationship between the labor share of income and labor market institution, and this is also panel data analysis for OECD countries. First of all, I'm going to start my presentation. By defining the labor share of income in the context of functional income distribution, because functional income distribution is really so important for macroeconomic policies. Because the national income is divided two parts. One of them is capital, one of them is labor. And the share of all these production factors are really so important for equality. If I want to define the labor share shows us how much income is given to labor in national income, in total national income. And the more capital gain means, and also the less labor obtained. That's why this is one of the important issue in macroeconomics. And the labor share, in order to calculate the labor share of income, we have to divide the total compensation of payment to total GDP. And these payments are included wages, salaries, and also some worker benefits. And in economic literature, there is a theory which is called as constancy of labor share of income by Caldon. And this theory says us there is a stable situation of labor share of income. However, the data, the numbers says us and shows us the different position of labor share of income, especially since the early 1980s, because labor share of income has been on a downward trend in many group of countries since the early 1980s. These group of countries like developed countries, emerging countries, Scandinavian, OECD, G7, and G20 countries. If we look at this decline in labor share of income closely, labor share of income dropped by 5 percentage points from 0.64 to 0.59 from 1950s to 1920s. In G7 group of countries, and also a similar situation appears for G20 countries. The decline was 4% from 0.57 to 0.53 from 1970s to 2020s. And also the labor share of income in Scandinavian countries also have similar situation. The drop was 5% from 1980s till 2020s. And there are some specific reasons that causes the decline in the labor share of income, like globalization, monopolization, improvements in technological change, and also the change in the labor market institution. These all factors affect the labor share of income and also capital share. But first of all, I'm gonna give some information about globalization and technological improvements. But the main focus of my study is institutions. Globalization. Globalization, countries' integration into the trade networks means participation in the global value chain in order to get more profitability and emerge from trade openness, financial integration, foreign direct investment outflow and inflow, trade in goods and services like capital and labor mobility. And globalization is important also for the bargaining power of production function, because globalization direct impact on them. And also technological improvements. Technological improvements in the form of automation and ICT technologies are one of the remarkable key factors in explaining the labor share of income. Thanks to technology, the way of production is shifting from labor to capital, from labor to machine. The reason of that, the machines, in comparison to labor, the machines are more profitable, more effective, and also less costly. That's why capital owners prefer machines, not labors, for the labor cost. That's why the change in the demand for labor, appears as a result of technological improvements. In a country where new technologies, ICT technologies, new technologies are included in the production process with the improvements in information and communication technologies, these developments are the driving force in the decrease of labor share of income, especially for advanced countries. Actually, there is a heterogeneity in the group of countries and in different countries, because, for example, in advanced countries, the reason of the decline in the labor share is different in advanced and in emerging countries, because globalization is the driving force for emerging countries in the decline of labor share, but the technological improvements is the driving force in advanced countries in the decline of labor share of income. However, the main focus of my study is labor market institution for OECD countries. While doing so, I used some labor market institutions variables such as unionization, collective bargaining coverage, active and passive labor market policies, employment protection legislation, and minimum wage. Also, I added some control variables. These are related to globalization and technological improvements in my analysis. In order to, and right now, I'm gonna explain shortly my institutions. Collective bargaining. What is collective bargaining? Collective bargaining is a negotiation process that the representative of employees and employers make effort to compromise on wages, working condition, and working hours. It's basically set up on the expectation of both sides from each other. Unionization. Unionization is one of the collective challenge mechanism, and this mechanism aims to heal the wages and compensation of workers and working standards by providing a safer workplace for employees, and to make effort for compromising with employers on collective bargaining process against the decision that leads to lessen the power of employees. That's why unionization and collective bargaining is really so related to each other and important for especially the employees. Employment protection legislation. Employment protection legislation is one of the labor market regulation that aims to hinder the arbitrary behaviors of employees, such as individual or collective dismissal towards workers through hiring and firing principle, which are the most influential mechanism to reach verdicts on the labor demand on dismissal. Minimum wage. Minimum wage is defined as that the minimum amount of payment to workers by employers in return to working of employees over a given period. now active and passive labor market policies, and the main aim of the active labor market policies is to make good job more accessible for the labor force with the help of the given rights under active policies. Active labor market policies include different type of policies such as training programs for those people who have no job, subsidized employment, work experience programs, and employment placement program, and public employment programs. Passive labor market policies are financial aids to unemployed people by transferring direct payment through unemployment benefits. In that point, unemployment benefits are really so important for workers because this is like safety when they are unemployed. These are my descriptive statistics, and I'm going to explain my all variables here. I use labor share, percentage of employees, I mean union, collective bargaining, minimum wage, and also I added real minimum wage, active and passive labor market policies, unemployment benefits under the context of passive labor market policies, and employment protection legislation, COF globalization index, growth in GDP per capita, FDI variables, total factor productivity, nominal capital stock, real fixed capital stock, and ICT capital stock. Now I'm going to explain all of them. This table shows us, even though the average labor share of income in OECD countries is 0.58, there is a prominent difference between countries. I mean, there is a country that has the maximum level of labor share of income with 0.77% among OECD countries, while another country has only 0.32%, which is 2.5 lower than the country has the maximum level. It shows us there's a heterogeneity and big difference between some countries. Based on the collective bargaining of employees, countries display different positions in a matter of collective bargaining. The difference between countries that have the greatest and lowest level of collective bargaining of employee degrees is 142.8 times. Similarly, there is a crucial distinction between countries based on the ratio of unionization. In detail, the unionization rate in one of them, in one of the OECD countries, is 93%, whereas only 4 out of every 100 employees are members of unions in another OECD countries. Another remarkable explanatory variable is globalization index. I mean COF globalization index, whose average is 70 for whole OECD countries. The average rate of FDI, I mean foreign direct investment outward variable related to globalization, is only 3.2, whereas there is a country with a 142 value, which is 44 times higher than the average. If we want to look at the total factor productivity, although there is no growth in value added based total factor productivity, the value reach 109 in some countries. Here, the correlation matrix, and I'm going to explain. As expected, the share accrue to the labor has a positive relation with unionization and collective bargaining of employees. In addition to these institutions, policies such as active and passive labor market policies, and also unemployment benefits in the context of passive labor market policies, and real minimum wage are also in a positive connection between the connection with the labor share of income. When it comes to the employment protection legislation, collective dismissal under the employment protection legislation has a positive correlation with labor share, while individual dismissal has negative. Regarding control variables, even if there is a positive impact of globalization on labor share of income, other variables related to globalization, such as the growth rate of GDP per capita and also FDI invert, are in a negative relationship. With respect to variables related to technology, not only total factor productivity has a positive effect on labor share, but also the improvements in the ICT technologies, real and nominal capital stock, are positive with labor share. Furthermore, foreign direct investment outward and minimum wages has almost no impact on the labor share of income. The regression, I use fixed effect estimation, and now I'm gonna explain the interpretation of the results. These results says us there's a significant relation between labor share of income and real minimum wage, and also unemployment benefit and passive labor market policies. Clearly, positive relations are seen between real minimum wage and labor share, while the negative relation occurs with the relationship between labor share and passive labor market policies and unemployment benefits. Furthermore, the growth in GDP per capita variable is one of the variables that affect the labor share significantly and positively. Also, foreign direct investment invert variable, which is related to globalization, is negatively significant for labor share of income in first and fifth models. In addition to all these results, another significant variable is COF Globalization Index, which shows us the economic, social, and political ways of globalization, and the connection is positive with globalization, I mean COF Globalization Index and labor share. And there are another significant relation between the improvement in ICT capital services and labor share. As conclusion, as I said you before, there are many specific reasons for the declining labor share of income via the increase in the inequality in the functional income distribution. These reasons are generally shaped by globalization, the improvements in technology, and institution. I mean the change in the institutions. According to the results of the regression, unemployment benefits, passive labor market policies, the real minimum wage in the context of institution, FDI invert and COF Globalization Index in the context of globalization, ICT capital services in the context of technology, are in a negative relation with the labor share of income. Thank you for listening me. If you have a question, I'm ready.
Thank you very much, Nur. It was very nice presentations. Let me go with the Musa. Musa is going to be talk about the Islamic finance, quality services or Sharia compliance, factors which mostly influence customer selection of Islamic bank, case of Tanzania Islamic banking. Floor is yours, Musa.
Okay, thank you, Hoja. My name is Musa Kasim Ramadani. I'm student of Sakarya University. Now I'm finishing my master, and my supervisor is Dr. Biren here. So I'm going to present. Let me first share my PowerPoint.
Just give some information about the Tanzania.
Tanzania now we are in the, like we can say it's rain season is going to start.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a little bit cold, not that much, but we are here.
Okay, go ahead.
So I think everyone see my
yes.
page. I'm going to present the quality of Sharia compliance, factor that mostly influence customer selection of Islamic banking. The case study in Tanzania, my country. Introduction. Okay. I'm going to explain the introduction. There's no doubt that Islamic banking through the application through the application of Islamic banking Sharia is growing, stable and relevant system of banking in relation to the conventional banking system in Tanzania. It's new here because it's about 10 years. We don't have 10 years more. So being a new system in the banking industry of the country, its players like banking, publicity, and the customer trust, along with all other aspects of the banking business development, attracting academic inquiries to unveil event training within. Customer perception of Islamic banking compliance to the Islamic Sharia law on banking, along with the customer certification with the service quality of Islamic bank are the major aspects studied in this paper. Research participants were asked to give their views on the four main questions or four main objectives that made up answer sought all overall objective, which was the determinant factor that influenced customer attraction to the Islamic banking. We will see those factors. There are Sharia compliance and the other factors. Let's see the philosophy of Islamic finance. Islamic consider loan as gratuitous contract. When you say gratuitous contracting, are those contracts which are benefit for just one party, a benefit. Let's say like I'm going to give you a loan, but I'm not supposed to benefit from it. The gratuitous contract, only one part benefit from it. So Islam take a loan as a gratuitous contract, or in Islam we say that Qard Hasan. That means that I'm going to give you money, but I'm not supposed to benefit from it. That's the meaning of gratuitous contract. Hence, Islamic finance is structured with some prohibition and encouragement, upholding the philosophy that prohibit trading in loan or debt. In Islamic finance philosophy, fixing an additional amount of return or on debt or loan, it neglects the rule of risk and rewards. Because when you want to get something from, when you want to add something from loan, you should share the risk and reward. If you are not going to share it, you are not supposed to call it the loan. It will be under the gratuitous contract. You are giving him the loan, but you're not supposed to expect anything from it. When you put it, you negligate the rule of risk and reward, which is inherited in any business transaction. In that regard, the philosophy is the theme built on three fundamental pillars, which are prohibition of riba, that is the any gain from the trading in debt, because in the Islam Allah said that he allowed the trading and the prohibit riba. So if you are doing trade, you must face the risk and reward. If you provide the loan, you should not expect anything from it. If you are going to expect anything from it, it's going to be prohibited. It's going to be unlawful transaction. And another pillar is time value of money. We are in Islamic finance, we are accepting the time value of money, but we are not going to add any issue. If you want to do that, we are going to use another contract. That means like a murabaha or musharaka. We are going to share. I'm going to share my knowledge. You share your capital. So when you get a loss, you are going to share a loss, or it depends according to the capital contribution. And another philosophy, last one, is the requirement of transparent and documentation. In the Quran, the long verses of the Quran, Allah elaborate the importance of making the documentation, any transaction, any financial transaction, and the transparent. It should be clear. I give you this, or you share this, and at the start of the business. That's the three pillars of the Islamic finance. Three pillars of philosophy of Islamic finance. Theoretical literature review that I used in this study, I used two theory. The first one is the theory of customer behavior, which, and especially in relation to the customer certification, which explained by the SET in 1979. Explains psychology of the customer thinking, feelings, arguments, selection of the existing alternative, where the customer buying behavior generate moment that influence the customer process on decision making. He said that where the customer buying the bank behavior generate the moment. If I go to the Islamic bank customer and I get what I expected, it making me to get the decision to continue that product, because I expect that I went there, I will not face the, I will not going to deal with the riba, I will not go to deal with the gambling and other prohibited financial transaction. That the meaning, that's why I use this philosophy, this theory. The second one theory revealed included this confirmation paradigm and the expectance value concept by Stekvik 2017. This theory explained the customer tend to develop the standard against which they compare the experience they get from the service reviewed. These two theory, they are going to match each other. We see that the first one say that customer buying behavior generate the moment that influence customer process decision making. This one say that explain the customer tend to develop the standard against they compare the experience they get from the service received. If you receive that service you expected, you get more comfortable, get more positive outcome. On the other hand, this expectance value theory, customer give the some judgment on the product expected, like outcomes and the benefit of using the product. In the other word, people are willing to perform behavior expected to lead the positive outcome. I expected I'm going there to deal with the Islamic banking so as I can go through the Islamic law and Sharia. And I went there and I satisfied. This lead to the positive outcome. I will say that Islamic banking, yes, they are doing with compliance with Sharia. That's why I use these two theoretical review. The empirical theoretical review, I use almost 5. First one, the first is its authors, the year they are produced, and the title and the result. The first one was the customer perception regarding the Sharia compliance in Islamic banking in Pakistan. The customer of this is the result, the customer satisfied with the Sharia compliance of the Islamic banking in Pakistan. And the second one, the Sain and the Maimun, determinant of the bank selection in the United Arabs, and the result was the recommended family. Determinant was the recommendation of the family member, friends were determinant in this in selecting banks. So when the family, when the new customer want to determine which bank should be used, they got maybe it's reference good of the quality of that bank. So they are using that bank through the family member and friends advice. The third one was attitude, behavior, and the patronage factor for customer toward the Islamic bank. This confidentiality, bank reputation, image, and efficiency are the factors considered by the customer. They are not there are other factors, but this was the most important factor that they used to choose Islamic banking over conventional banking. The fourth one was the Islamic banking study of the customer, certified, and the preference in Jordan. And the confidentiality, also these the third one and the fourth one, they match the result. Confidentiality, bank reputation, image, and efficiency are the factor. The result were matched, they are agree each other. They also do in the same area in Jordan. And the fourth one, the bank patronage factor of Muslim and non-Muslim. In this study, they no significant of being Muslim or non-Muslim. They just say that they emphasize that the bank should be emphasized on the customer caring, dress code, employment customer relationship should be that way. They should be emphasized on that sector. So Islamic banking in Tanzania. In Tanzania, we had only one Islamic banking, full-fledged Islamic banking that we established in 2011. That's called the Amana Bank. Although the Islamic bank services had already been introduced in the country since 2008 by Kenya Commercial Bank. This is the private bank from Kenya. They're providing service here. So they are first bank which started to provide Islamic banking in Tanzania, just service. They just opened the only country called the Islamic account. So they just opened that and they started to open the window. Now they have a window of Islamic banking. And now we have almost 5 banks which are providing window of Islamic banking. So until now, we have only one Islamic banking, full-fledged Islamic banking in Tanzania. In that area time, Tanzania had no framework to regulate Islamic banking activities as per Islamic Sharia. Hence, each bank with the Islamic bank window has its own Sharia supervisory board and relied on the standard issued international bodies like FISB and IAF. This was the body provide the standard of how to use the Islamic banking, how to provide the loan, how to finance the customers. So at that time, even until now, we just hear in the central bank they are going to start a special department that they are going to deal with Islamic banking. But now Amana Bank stands as our central bank. Amana Bank stands as an Islamic central bank that are guided those windows. That power came from the central bank. They give Amana Bank because they are full-fledged and they have expertise. I used to work to Amana Bank before coming to Turkey. So I just experienced that power. So in this regard, the situation attached research to reveal the trend within the subtitle, hence this study. Empirical study of Islamic banking in Tanzania. I used the methodology I used. This study assumes that customer certification has strong relationship with Islamic bank compliance with the Sharia. That Sharia compliance bank will yield enable quality service to customer that will bring about the customer certification and hence increase the percentage of bank selection. The qualitative method of the study was adopted for this study, and the questionnaire to use it collecting qualitative data. The data collected were then subjected to analyze using IBM SPSS software. The tools, the questionnaire, closely-ended questionnaire were used to collect data on the perception of customer in 4 areas, including customer awareness of Islamic banking, certification of Sharia compliance, bank Sharia compliance, certification with the Islamic service quality, and factor for the customer selection of Islamic banking. The objective was to discover what matter most to the customer and be able to determine which factor most influence Islamic bank selection. The questionnaire for data collection include 200 online questionnaire and 2 hard copy. The respondents were picked equal basis, 200 from the mainland and 200 from the Zanzibar. We are here. We have an island called Zanzibar. The population is around 2 million, but 95% of them, they are Muslim. And the mainland coast, most of the coast region of Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, Tanga, Mtwara, most of the population are Muslim. So from the 400 questionnaire, we collected 305 respondents to return the field questionnaire, and the data collected has been processed using SPSS, the program for processing the analysis of software. That's the next slide is the graphic of the respondent. This as I showed, I have categorized gender, age group, education, source of income, and religion. As we see, the religion, as I said, we use Zanzibar and Dar es Salaam only because of the availability of banking. Islamic banking, they are mostly located in these 2 areas, Zanzibar and Dar es Salaam. And that's why we see the number here, Muslim, the 77% of the respondent, and Christian only 23% of the respondent, and others as you see. And finding, after administrating 305 questionnaire collected from the respondent from the study, analyzing data through the IBM, the outcomes revealed the following outcome and finding by the categorized according to the 4 specific area covered by the study, which is awareness of Islamic bank practice, Islamic bank Sharia compliance, certification with the Islamic bank service quality, and the customer banks selection. We're going to see one of the one which what are the result of According to the SCHIPA 2014, in the study, awareness means that the respondent know much about the subject asked in the questionnaire. That's what he said, I borrowed from him. In our questionnaire, we asked you several many questions according to know the awareness of the Islamic banking of Islamic banking of the customer. How aware of them? We found that more than 60% of the respondents were unaware of Islamic banking more than 10 years ago. As I said, this is the new industry in our country, and we had only one Islamic bank. Even now, you can ask some of our citizens, did you know if there is an Islamic bank? Maybe you can ask, you can say no. That's why we found the 60%. This 60%, 40% they said no, the 20% they said maybe. When you say maybe, it can be 10 years ago, it may be yes or no. So I said that these 60%, they are unaware of Islamic banking 10 years ago, while the 75% had knowledge ranging from the limited level to very good knowledge on Islamic banking. I categorized the questionnaire with the very good knowledge, limited knowledge, no knowledge at all. Only 25% they had no knowledge at all. This 75%, they include from limited to very good knowledge. So if someone had even knowledge of Islamic banking, I conclude that he had little bit knowledge of Islamic banking. And another one is adding to the result, 82% of respondents were aware of Islamic banking are not only meant for Muslims. This is the question that I was thinking before doing this research, that many of the people may think this Islamic banking is only for Muslim only. So I put the question to know how the public, how the customer of Islamic banking they're thinking, how they perceive it. So 82% of the respondents, they accept that this Islamic bank is not only for Muslim only. In Islamic banking Sharia compliance, I put some question, some statement that providing to know if we understand this statement, can I agree it or not? I put one of the statement state that Islamic Bank of the Islamic Bank of Tanzania, are they comply with the Sharia? 62.6% of the respondents agreed that Islamic banking in Tanzania, their activities according to the Sharia law. As remember that the respondents all are Islamic bank users. So the 62.6 accept that Islamic Bank Islamic Bank in Tanzania conducted their activities through Sharia law. And the second statement were about to know the difference about the Islamic banking and the Sharia and the conventional bank. What are the main difference is they use Islamic law. The 73% agreed with the respondent, agreed the application of Islamic law is the separate point of Islamic banking from the conventional banking. And the third statement were about to know if Islamic bank it came to put away from Muslim to engage in the haram activities. So the results show that 79.7% agreed with the opinion that Islamic bank does not mean to save Muslims from engaging. So they accept that Muslim, Islamic bank users, they are using because they are not want to engage in the haram activities. And the fourth, the statement, it was dealing about the transparent. This was not good because the 42% only, they said that they are dissatisfied with the transparent of Islamic banking. This is Islamic banking for here, they should improve their transparent, because we saw in the philosophy of Islamic finance, it should be documented and transparent. So this is the worst part of the Islamic banking in Tanzania. They are not well and transparent. They are 42%, they go against it. It's not transparent. And the 31.8, they stayed neutral. Means they don't know if the Islamic bank is transparent or not. So this is the worst to the Islamic banking of Tanzania. And the last one was the difference between Islamic banking and conventional banking. When you determine the profit share, are they the same or not? 33.8% could not see the difference between Islamic banking, and it's very, very controversial question, very controversial issue to the normal customer or normal individual who don't know anything about the Islamic issue to separate from interest and the profit. It's a very controversial issue. So 3.0, they don't see any difference. They see that interest and profit is the same thing. So this is also, it's a challenge to the Islamic banking of Tanzania. They should provide the Islamic knowledge, Islamic banking knowledge to their customer.
Okay.
Another objective or another objective was certification with the bank service quality. We asked several questions about their customer to go there to see how they perceive the quality of the Islamic banking. We respond 77.4% of the 305 respondents were satisfied with Islamic bank reception. They accept that when they go there, they accepted well and they get the service as they expected. Because when you get the service as you expected, you mean that you are satisfied. So another statement was the 50% agreed to gain knowledge from the employees on the various Islamic banking matter. So this is the statement that are you getting knowledge from the employer of the Islamic banking? Half of it agreed that they are getting knowledge from the employees. And the third one was are they satisfied with their customer attention, employee customer attention? 65.6% are satisfied with the attention of the employees. And the worst part of this objective, they're dissatisfied with the bank coverage, with the branch and the ATM. As I said before, this is the new industry in Tanzania, so it's not obvious that to have many branches, many ATMs. So they try to use the windows, they try to use the ATM, master ATM, so as any region can withdraw his money. So the average, they said 39.3%, they are not satisfied with the coverage of branches and the ATM. That's because of the new industry in Tanzania. The last one, the last
Musa, almost we finished the times. Please,
it's
please.
just two.
Okay.
I just remain 3 or 4 slides.
Just summarize it.
Okay. Last objective was the customer bank selection. Customer bank selection, there is 5 categories. Which factor are the customer are used to see if the factor that are convincing them to choose Islamic banking over the conventional bank. There are 5: Sharia compliance, quality of service, location of the bank, and the influence from by friends and relatives, and cost benefit. Those are the 5. But 75 of the respondents who are choosing Sharia compliance as the main factor from them to select Islamic bank of the conventional bank, followed by the 17% of the Sharia service quality, where the religion of the respondent become the reason for the Sharia compliance and the quality service to be the leading factor among the factor that influenced by the friends. So we can see this one here is the cross-checking about the religion and against the factor. This side is said about the religion. Most of the Muslim, they choose the Sharia compliance as their main factor to use Islamic banking, while the Christian service quality was their main factor to use Islamic banking factor. Those were the reason why Sharia compliance and the quality service to be the leading factor of the. At the conclusion, the study revealed that the Islamic banking of the customer Tanzania, that Islamic banking complies with the Sharia law, and the Islamic banking customer are more attracted by the Islamic bank Sharia with the Sharia law. In fact, in the first place, followed by the quality, as I said before, and the fact also indicate the Muslim are more attracted by Sharia, and while non-Muslim are more attracted by a quality service provided by Islamic bank. Regardless of this general positive perception of Sharia compliance, but studies show that customers do not have full knowledge about how Islamic bank avoid interest on their business. As I said before, it is big issue to understand. So this it should be emphasized by Islamic Bank to provide the Islamic Bank knowledge to their customer. And the recommendation, most effort still need to be done on the part of the banking regulation, because we, as I explained, we don't have a Islamic banking regulation, and I don't have a central bank that regulates Islamic banking in Tanzania. We just have one full-fledged Islamic bank that regulates other windows of Islamic banking. Hastening owing the growing awareness by general public that Islamic banking are not meant for Muslim only, the result of study lead to the conclusion that Islamic bank need to achieve and maintain better standard of the compliance. So Islamic should stick with the Sharia compliance and the quality as their leading component of the Sharia component of the banking selection of the bank customer of Tanzania. Thank you for your attention.
Musa, thank you very much. It was really very nice presentations. Arkadaşlar, oturumun süresi de bitmek üzere. Doğrusu arkadaşlarımızdan acaba hani soru var mı? Online orada İstanbul Sabahattin Zaim'den arkadaşlarımız acaba online dan gelen soru var mı? Herhangi bir konuda bir şey paylaşım olacak mı arkadaşlar? İlgileniyor, bakıyor mu acaba?
Değerli hocam, YouTube tarafından gelen herhangi bir soru olmadı.
Tamam. O zaman yani genel olarak zamanımız da bitmek üzere, herhalde çok uzatmamamızı arzu ediyorsunuz, değil mi? Yani zaman konusunda bir kısıtlamamız var mı?
Hocam 5.30'da diğer oturum başlayacak.
Ha, tamam, o zaman burada bir genç akademisyen adayımız var. Böyle ekrana ondan hemen bir parça yapabiliriz yani, böyle bu kadar genç bir erken yaşta akademiye heves eden bu arkadaşımızı. Neydi ismi Esra? Sen
Mehmet Bedir hocam.
Mehmet
benim oğlum.
Bedir. Yani burada çok ilgili.
İrem, sana bir
Bu
şey
ilgisinin
diyemem.
sebebi biz miyiz, yoksa akademi mi, yoksa yani böyle nedir ilgisini çeken Mehmet Akif'in?
Mehmet Bedir.
Bedir. Bedir.
Hı hı.
En çok ilgini çeken ne oldu Mehmet Bedir? Ne dedi?
Daha yeni geldim, hiçbir şey olmadı.
Hiçbir şey yok oldu. Ama herhalde içimizde en çok Musa'yı sevdi. Evet.
Bir tek Musa Bey'in sunumuna katıldı zaten.
Evet, yani çok, evet, hepimizden çok daha fazla ilgi gören
Ben de
Musa.
onu sevdim.
İşte, harika. Peki arkadaşlar, doğrusu hani dışarıdan gelen soru varsa ona ilişkin söz verecektim ama soru da yok. Yani sunumlar birbirini bir kısmıyla böyle tamamlayan nitelikteydi ama böyle biraz Musa'nın konusu biraz oturumun kapsamının bir parça belki ama ilginç bir sunum. Musa bu konu üzerinde bir yüksek lisans tezi yazıyor. Bizim burada İslam Ekonomisi ve Finansı Departmanı'nda yüksek lisans yapıyor. Yapmış olduğu çalışma Tanzanya üzerindeki bir alan araştırması idi. Onun bulgularını burada paylaşmış oldu. Yani hepinize çok teşekkür ediyorum. Hepiniz genç akademisyenlersiniz. Bu platformlarda inşallah tekrar karşılaşırız. Tekrar sizi görmek ve daha karşılıklı yüze, daha böyle rahat ortamlarda sohbet edip karşılıklı bu konular üzerinde biraz daha böyle derinlemesine sohbet etme imkanı buluruz. Hepinize hayatlarınızda, akademik hayatlarınızda başarılar diliyorum. Burada şu an herhangi bir katılım belgesine ilişkin bir bilgilendirme olmadı. Kuvvetli ihtimal sizinle paylaşacaklardır katılım belgenizi. Burada sunum yaptığınıza dair bir teyit mahiyetinde belge olacak, üniversitenize takdim etmek üzere. Hepinize akademik hayatlarınızda başarılar diliyorum. Şimdilik burada tamamlamış olalım arkadaşlar.
Teşekkürler
Yani burada
hocam.
değerli katılımcıların katılım belgelerini sistemde kayıtlı e-posta adreslerine bir hafta içinde takdim edileceği ifade ediliyor. Sizin ekranınıza da düşmüştür. Dolayısıyla sunumlar için yapmış olduğunuz buradaki faaliyetinize ilişkin bu belge sizin tarafınızdan teyit edilmiş olacak. Burada olduğunuz için hepinize teşekkür ediyorum. İleride görüşmek üzere. Sunumu burada tamamlamış oluyorum. Oturumu da kapatıyorum. Hepinize iyi akşamlar arkadaşlar.
İyi akşamlar.
Akşamlar.
İyi akşamlar arkadaşlar.